This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Welcome back to the Research Talks here on Stockbox with Alan Green, where it's been a little while since we've done a Research Talks podcast, hasn't it, Alan? But that is because the market's been a little bit dead and there's perhaps been not so much to talk about. But there certainly is stuff to talk about today, particularly with a regular company on the podcast, Power Metal Resources, but also GreenX Metals, which you were telling me a little bit about before we started, which sounds extremely interesting. So yeah, it's good to be chatting to you again. How have you been? These past few weeks?
Well, I have to say, Mark, we've been very well indeed. Obviously, we've had this incredible heat wave in the UK, and it has been extremely quiet. So, fortunately, we live on more or less on Seaford Head, so great walks, but also very close to the beach too. So, we've been spending an awful lot, an awful lot of time on the beach, just sitting there in the afternoon, when it's during the really quiet times, and just enjoying some sun, swimming in the sea. I mean, I've spent more time, I think, the past few weeks swimming in the sea than I think I've spent in the last 20, 30 years. It's been quite remarkable.
Oh, good, good. Well, I did also have a dip in the North Sea at Scheveningen, or Hoek van Holland over here. I was lucky enough to go out with some of my Dutch friends on the back of a motorbike. I've not been on the back of a motorbike for a while. I think they are definitely trying to persuade me to get my motorbike license. So we went to the beach and I went for a swim, and it's not chilly because it's so shallow where this beach is. And I came back on the bike and I was very relaxed on the back, I was just living life, enjoying the warm breeze in my face and the city lights. And I think I am tempted. So I know you're into your bikes as well, so I'm sure you'll be equally as encouraging.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the thing is, there's nothing better than touring on a bike in the summer. It's a fantastic fun. Somebody once said you can drive from A to B in a car, and it's if it's the scenery is spectacular, it's like watching a movie. If you're riding a bike on that same route, you're actually in the movie. It's it's immersive. It's a wonderful thing, you can just you can access little tracks and trails that you wouldn't otherwise find, and it's great fun. Planning, all being well, we're planning to go back to Wales for a few days in September. So, that's kind of the plan. But we'll see.
Nice. Good. Yeah. Okay, so Power Metal Resources then, of course, they're a very exciting point in any mining company exploration's journey, where the next drill campaign could be fantastic, couldn't it?
Well, full marks to Paul Johnson here. Paul has put together this incredible portfolio of assets with Power Metal Resources, and he's assembled a great team of people, and he's got a very broad-reaching, comprehensive plan to deliver shareholder value. As you know, and I know you have too, we both interviewed Paul many times this year as each project has developed, and despite the fact that we've had these really difficult markets, challenging markets, which have just seen the share prices of all the junior explorers, battered. Paul has just remained upbeat, and his attitude's always been, look, we're working hard here. Nothing's changed. It's just the markets are taking a view on this sector at the moment, and there's nothing we can do about it. So the company's continued to build, and of course, 14 different projects around the world, and a number of IPO projects too, which of course those particular wheels have started to turn. Of course, we had First Class Metals, in which Power Metals Resources have a stake, came to market with a £6.5 million market cap, and it's come to market, and the valuation has held, and the company's traded higher than the IPO price, and it's currently trading around the IPO price. But that's a testament really to the quality of assets that company has in Canada. And then, of course, if we look at the range of exploration assets that POW itself has. We have the Haneti project, which is a joint venture with Katoro Gold in Tanzania, the Malopo Farms Complex project, which I'm going to come to in a second. This is where all the excitement is, and rightly so. And of course, the Tati Greenstone project, which is greenstone. Greenstone belt tends to be a very good hunting ground for gold and other metals like copper, and indeed there's been some exploration work there already, which has delivered very encouraging data. That's in Africa, of course. Then in Australia, we have the Gawler project, and then the joint venture with Red Rock Resources, which is the new Ballarat Gold Corporation, which a number of gold projects around, or a number of gold licenses, exploration licenses around Ballarat and in Victoria, which are the Victoria Goldfields. And of course, we know with other companies like ECR who are developing their assets there that there's a great deal of value there. And then, of course, in America, the Alamo Gold Project, we have the Athabasca Basin Project, which has a number of assets, including, of course, the uranium assets, which are being developed in the Orthia North, and of course the Silver Peak Project. And then, of course, in America, we have the soon-to-be IPO of Golden Metal Resources, which is the package of the Pilot Mountain Tungsten Project, the Golconda, the Summit Project. We have the Stonewall Project and Garfield projects, all of which are fairly close together within the Nevada belt, which is renowned. It's a renowned mining environment, and obviously the Pilot Mountain Tungsten Project, which has a JORC resource estimate already, is front and center for golden metal. And then, of course, we have, back to Australia, we have First Development Resources, FDR. I've interviewed Tristan Pottas, and he's extremely excited. In fact, he and the team are out there at the moment. They're going to be on the ground shortly and reporting back with more data. And FDR consists of a number of assets in the Patterson province, where they've identified at the Ripon Hills and Braeside West assets which are very similar in terms of their magnetic anomalies, very similar to the Haviran magnetic bullseye when it was first discovered, of course, by Greatland Gold. So that's exciting. And then also wrapped in with that is the Celta project, the Celta uranium project in the Northern Territories, and we're going to be hearing an awful lot more from FDR in the run up to their IPO in the coming weeks and months. But today we're talking about the Malopo Farms project, and I interviewed Paul yesterday. That interview was published this morning, and of course this is this really. It's a transition moment for Power Metal as it moves from a project manager and mining exploration company to a company that's actually has an asset in the ground and is looking to develop that asset. So the ownership of the ownership of the assets consists currently there's a current, as we speak, a 53% economic interest in Malopo, but on 18th of May, Power Metal announced a transaction that will see us increasing Malopo increasing to 88%, which means it's become project operator and is working to fast track and develop the project. Drill holes have gone into the ground there. Electromagnetic surveys have been undertaken, and this is again a huge area. It's not dissimilar to Kavango's own KSZ, Kalahari Suture Zone project, which of course has mapped out a huge magnetic anomaly. But of course, when you drill these anomalies, you're talking about a vast area, a huge area the size of London or larger. So where do you start drilling? Where do you first go in the ground? Of course, it's the magnetic anomalies that tell you where to go. So literally, first drill hole into the ground, drill hole K16, penetrated the edge of this huge magnetic conductor at a stratigraphic level that's similar to nickel sulfide mineralization. And when you drill into something, it's actually the width of the potential asset that tells you how big the thing is. You can often drill into, say, 0.5 meter or 50 centimeters and pull out a meaningful amount of resource. But this was a 7 meter a 7-meter sample, which revealed 0.44% nickel from 445 meters down, and also other traces of other elements in the hole too. But the the fact that the drill hole has touched the edge and come up with this result already is hugely significant. And indeed, if you look at the interview I did with Paul, there are 3 slides. In fact, those slides are also on the RNS, so you can actually look at them directly from the RNS that came out this morning. You can actually see the size of those magnetic anomalies. And indeed, the drill hole has just touched one, which is estimated to go some 800 meters. And then there's also one which I think is to the south or the east of the current drill hole location, which is a whole additional ball game. So it appears that I mean we entitled the interview today "Monster at Malopo," but certainly looking at the size of the anomaly that the magnetic readings are showing, it appears to be every inch that, and to go into the ground like they have and pull those numbers out at the outset is hugely significant. So we then come to Power itself and the share price, and happy to say that the share price has pushed higher this morning, but it's just pushed back over a penny, which gives the company a capitalization of just 16 million. Now, when you consider those projects I've discussed, any one of those projects, as I said before, coming to fruition, that project alone would dwarf the current market capitalization. And we've seen other companies with single projects with much higher valuations, and for good reason. And I did Mark, we spoke earlier this year, and I did a relative comparison where I looked at each project and I compared it to companies operating similar projects that were listed in their own right. So the valuation reflected the value of that single asset, and I just did a back-to-back comparison, and I came out with a valuation with a valuation loosely against all of the individual projects, and also some of the IPO projects too. Which FCM, for instance, have also exceeded, given the stake that Power holds in the company. And I came out with a valuation of around 71 million. And that, of course, would put the share price many times where it is now. There is also further dilution to come, so we could probably be very conservative and take something off that. But nonetheless, when you have an asset like this, and what Power have tapped into this morning at Malopo Farms is hugely significant, but the share price movement doesn't really, it in no way reflects the potential value that could come out of the ground there. I mean, we're all aware of the shortage of nickel, the importance nickel plays in EV and new technology going forward. It's going to be a key part of that, and currently there's absolutely no premium on the Power share price that reflects that whatsoever. Let's not forget, the company raised money at the start of the year. It raised just over $1 million, and that was done literally in a few hours on a Sunday afternoon over a weekend, and that was done at 1.7p. So we're well down from that particular point, and there is absolutely no way that the valuation of these projects and also the news flow that this company generates from each project, we're going to see. We're seeing stocks like Power and other resource stocks bumping along the bottom at the moment, and the market will snap back. And when it snaps back, companies like Power will start to see their nascent value or the nascent value within their assets realized, and that's a very, very long way from where we are now in terms of valuation. And if we can get to a valuation 4 or 5 times where we are to 4 or 5p, then I think we're probably starting to reflect some of the value that's actually within the Power asset portfolio.
Well, 4 or 5p, it's 4 to 5 times, isn't it, where we are now?
Which still it's a very modest representation of everything that's happening within the company. You've got 3 IPOs on the runway. We've already had one, First Class Metals. That's gone very well indeed. We've got work taking place at the Tati project. We've got the uranium assets, and uranium is hugely in demand. So there's a Celta asset, which is part of FDR, and then of course we've got the Athabasca assets, the uranium assets there. So all of these are developing and moving forward all the time, appreciating value, and that value simply is not reflected in the current share price. So if you were looking to buy into a fund of mining projects, you couldn't do any better than buy this one, because all of these projects have been gone through by professional mining engineers. They've run the slide rule over every single one, and each one is growing in value. So this is if you're entering this market for the first time and looking at mining stocks, and you want to minimize your risk, you buy some power stock. You're spreading that risk, and you're minimizing the risk, and potentially exposing yourself to what I believe will be some pretty big upside.
Well, yes, certainly, and by the looks of things, you might find out fairly soon. I think Paul will be quite keen to get the next round of drilling planned and active there at Malopo Farms. And that picture, well, a picture speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it? And you can clearly see there they've clipped the edge of a magnetic anomaly. But they've already had the visible sulfides in that drill hole that was done. So, well, now they go for it and see what it turns up. I remember the Metal Tiger days and the excitement around that T3 copper deposit when they sort of struck copper, and it's a good time to be investing in a mining exploration company when they're at this stage. It's very exciting, not without risk, obviously, of course, but
of course, do your own research. Yes,
you've got to do your own research, but it is there's no doubt it's an exciting point, almost like when an oily drills for a well, it can be a duster, but also it can transform the company overnight. But as you said earlier, very clearly, it is POW. They've got such a vast portfolio, haven't they, that the risk is de-risked to some extent as well.
It is, yeah. It is de-risked, and also, I think the other exciting thing is too, given the resources or the considerable resources that POW have at their disposal, it means that when something like this happens, the assets and resources are in place to fast track those developments, i.e., get the drilling team on the ground again, build the size of the team, bring more rigs in, get more drilling done, and prove up the assets within record time. So and I know Paul fully intends to do that. It's going to be a priority.
Excellent. Well, let's wait and see, Alan. I'm sure we're talking about the company again in the fall, when in a couple of months' time, see where we are. But thank you for bringing us up to date on that. It's certainly, as I say, a big significant development there with POW. And you're going to talk to us about another company, say GreenX Metals, then, who have some sort of fancy looking ATVs, don't they?
Yeah, it's a great company, and it's an unusual asset, and one that I think offers a fairly unique dimension of value dimension as a mining company. So the company has, before I get on to the Arctic Rift Copper Project, which is their primary asset, and I just hark back to what I said about POW just now, about valuations, companies with single assets, their relative valuations compared to where POW is. And I think GreenX Metals is a very good case in point. GreenX have a series of historical legacy assets in Poland, namely the Jan Karski and Debiensko coal mines. And the Polish government effectively, the plan was to press ahead and reopen those mines, and the permission ultimately wasn't granted after a lot of investment had gone in, there is currently a court case underway to pursue a claim, and that claim for historic damages, and this is regarding the lost revenues that went into redeveloping the mines and also lost profits going forward. There's a claim of £737 million sterling. And this is being prosecuted via an established and enforceable legal network. And we often hear about, companies that provide funding to fund huge litigation cases. And, there's a company called Burford Capital that's been made a lot of money from doing that over the past few years. So this is a very similar case. They have 12.5 million million in litigation funding in place to cover costs and expenses, and the company are very confident that they're going to get this money back. But of course, as we know, with court cases, particularly one that's taking on the Polish government, it's going to be a long and protracted process, and it could be years before anything is resolved there. So you can't look at GreenX Metals on that, but having that in the background is it's a nice and it's a fairly unique opportunity for which there's absolutely no downside, but potentially huge amounts of upside if it comes off. So I'll park that there. But when you do your research, just look at this. So GreenX Metals currently trading at 14.7p, not far off year highs of 18p and off year lows of 10p. And if you look at the chart, you'll see that shares started to move upward sharply last month, and with good reason. So the company is joint venturing with Greenfields Exploration on the ARC project or the Arctic Rift project in Greenland. And of course, Mike, we've spoken previously about AX Gold, which is now, of course, Amrock Minerals, and their assets in southern Greenland. The Arctic Rift copper project is right at the other end. So it's up in an area called J.C. Christensen land, just off Independence Fiord. And this is part of the area in Greenland that was obviously, with global warming, we're seeing areas that were previously virtually inaccessible become accessible now, and with it, of course, there are mineral riches and assets that are there to be found. GreenX Metals launched a program of exploration into this area, into the Arctic Rift project, an area of some 30 kilometers in what's regarded as the Discovery Zone, which namely is Neergaard Dal and Neergaard South prospects within the area of the ARC project, and they launched a team. They shipped them in. They shipped them in. They landed on J.C. Christensen land, and what then transpired was something akin to vehicles rolling off the film Prometheus. It was an otherworldly event where these incredible Sherp ATV machines rolled across, and they're all-terrain vehicles with these huge tires, which of course can carry people for miles on end, and in complete safety, and of course survey the ground and collect samples as they go. So that was done. If you go to the GreenX Twitter feed, you'll see the pictures of those vehicles, which look great, and it's a great advertisement for the company that built them as well. And they've undertaken research already. Xrf Analysis, of course, Xrf is the machine where you can basically test the copper samples on the ground. And the results have come back. Every single asset they tested came back with over 99% copper, which is almost unheard of. So this is almost striking the mother lode stuff. It's quite exceptional. Dr. John Bell, the technical director, said that they were confident the native copper would be rich, but they didn't expect the results to be so spectacular. And obviously, they're collecting metallurgical and grade information at this point to assess the size of the asset, after which they can, of course, then plan next stages. But this it's been referred to by GreenX as a world-class project, and the first trip in confirms that without a doubt. They also confirmed the presence of silver in one example. Median copper purities all the way through just under 100%. I mean, we're looking at 99.8%, 99.7%, and 99.4%. So quite exceptional, quite astonishing. They said the high quality of the analyzed examples is comparable to blister copper, and this is a product typically produced by smelting prior to being sent to a refinery. So it's almost like seeing a pure piece of copper there in the ground in front of you and just getting a little hammer and chisel and chipping it out, and there you go. So quite exceptional. And obviously, the larger the size of the asset, the more feasible it becomes to then get a team on the ground, conduct a pre-feasibility study, and then, of course, get getting the stuff out of the ground, getting it to market. And we all know what's happened in the copper market. It's been, copper's hugely in demand. It's an integral part of the new energy environment we're now living in, and indeed very exciting for GreenX Metals. So as I say, the share price after that news popped up from 11p to 14.7p, but that gives the company a market cap of 68.48 Australian dollars, which is about 35 to 40 million sterling. But I would suggest, with the purity of that blister copper on the ground, and also that legacy asset I spoke about with the litigation potentially being successful, then there's an awful lot of upside on offer, and the evidence already, I think, is pointing to something much larger at Arctic Rift.
Okay, so 99% copper, that's incredible. Normally, if it's a grade over 1%, people get excited. But
yeah, but 3 samples, 99.8%, 99.7, 99.4.
wow.
So what they looked at was something that is a product produced by smelting. But it's on the ground. It's actually there on the ground.
It's like a
just
lump
waiting
of
to
copper.
be pulled up.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's exceptional. I don't think I've ever heard of anything that spectacular. I mean, it really is quite exceptional.
No, indeed, no. And I wonder, you say it's ticked up, what, from 11 to 14 pence, so not a significant uptick on that bit of news.
Well, I think that's probably reflective of the times we're in, also like summer volumes. But the team are on the ground there with these huge Sherp ATVs, so we're going to hear an awful lot more from GreenX in the coming months. There's no doubt about that. So I think it's a case of catch it while you can. While it's down here, fill your boots.
Fill your boots while it's down here. What's this market cap?
Market cap is 68 million Aussie dollars. So that's about 35 million pounds sterling. So
okay,
just going to do a quick 68. Yeah, 39 million sterling. So it's a very modest valuation for both the copper asset and also the legacy asset from the coal mines in Poland.
Okay, well, thank you for introducing that company to us. Certainly, yeah, another one to keep an eye on, Alan. So thank you very much for that. So we've covered there, obviously, both power metal resources and the significant development at Molopo Farms, which we'll see some results of that in a couple of months, I imagine, and the case there for GreenX Metals as well. Well, thank you very much, Alan. Thank you for your time.
Okay.